Hi, this is Kate Otto, and I'm here with Kim Bowman and Christine Jensen, and we're here for another update of the market. Today is Monday, May 11th, and we're very excited because we're able to get back into our offices to work. And I'm going to let Christine and Kim go over the first couple of, we're just going to kind of do an overview of the market.
Good, good. Well, I'm kind of curious. What are the new protocols now, Kim, for showing listings now that a portion of the shelter-in-place order has been lifted and we're now under safer at home?
Yeah, sanitize and social distance. So RE/MAX Alliance has new guidelines. They are form that we fill out. We have the sellers fill out and the buyers fill out to make sure that no one's been exposed or showing signs of COVID-19, and that happens prior to any showing. And then once we do have a showing, we are very strict on no overlapping showing. So back before COVID-19, you could have many different buyers coming in around the same time of the house, and now it is strictly just one group of buyers with their realtor. Sellers are asked to open up all of the doors, cabinets, turn on all of the lights, make sure anything that a buyer would be curious about looking into is open and ready so that they don't have to touch anything. And we're asking all of the buyers to wear gloves and masks. The restrictions on the number of people in the house are down to just the folks that are signing the contract and actually purchasing the house. So before we had a lot of, relatives that were really excited about the house or kids that would come. And now we're just focusing on the buyers that are signing the contract, walking through the house with their realtor. And once the showing's over, the sellers are then asked to act like no one followed any protocol and touched everything and sanitize again, just making sure and keeping everybody safe and sanitary and reducing the amount of touching and risk and exposure. It's an adjustment for sure. It's a little sterile going through a house and not being able to touch anything. I ask my clients if they do need something opened, that I'm opening it because I have gloves and a sanitizer wipe. I accidentally locked my buyers in the house the other day because I was closing the back door and they were trying to get out the front, and they were like, Kim, can you open the door for me? So we're adjusting, but yeah, it's all good, and it's all keeping everybody safe.
Perfect. So that was really helpful. Thank you, Kim.
Yeah.
Kate, why don't you tell us how the housing market's actually been April versus March? I think you might have some statistics to share with us. Yeah.
So some hard numbers. In March of 2019, the number of closed sales we had was 5,582. In March of 2020, it was actually a little higher. It was 5,829. So houses were closing in March. Everything was going through and going all the way to the closing table. In April of 2019, we had 5732 close. In April of 2020, we only had 4741. So it was a pretty significant drop. The biggest takeaway of that is it was a combination of a couple things. A lot of sellers just withdrew their listings that third and fourth week of March. We did have a significant amount of buyers pull out in those last couple of weeks of March and pull out of contracts. However, inventory is starting to rise again, and unfortunately, there are less buyers in the market because of the increase in unemployment and tighter financing restrictions. So that's just kind of a reality of this market. Another takeaway, though, is that inventory is still really high. Compared to March 2015, that was kind of like the height of our crazy sellers market. We only had 9,262 units on the market. March of 2019, we had 10,465. March of 2020, we had 10,109. And then April, we've increased to almost 11,000 at 10,925. So we're seeing increased inventory. Takeaway from that is that it is a good time to be a buyer, particularly as more and more units are starting to come onto the market. All counties are now open for showings, in-person showings as of May 8th. So I think we'll continue to see those numbers rise.
Okay, super exciting. So Kim, this new normal now that we've all been talking about, what are some of the new systems that you and Kate have that are allowing you to kind of pivot in this new environment to make it possible for you to best serve your clients?
Yeah, it's kind of an exciting time because I'm obsessed with technology. And so we have really embraced that as an industry. And where we've had paperless transactions for a while now where everything is online and you're doing your online signatures and things like that. It's expanded now with the title companies also offering some virtual closings as well as, curbside. And then using Zoom, and I know there's a love-hate relationship there with this technology, but it's been great. We can actually tour your home and talk about your listing before we step foot in it. And we can, talk staging strategies and things like that. And all of that can be virtual without putting any risk to any parties involved. There's now live streaming of open houses, which has been so fun and a learning experience for all of us. But this has kind of opened up the house to more people, not just the local neighbors that are walking through the open house, but people from all over the country are logging in and viewing the live open house where we're walking through the house, answering any questions they may have, and really just broadening the exposure of the home virtually, which is great. And lastly, we've got the 3D tours and the video walkthrough tours. Those have already existed, but they just haven't been used often. It was a very rare occasion where you would use it. And now it's kind of becoming the norm, which is great because it's really letting people feel the flow of the home, not just flipping through photos, and really get into the house, open up closets and things like that. The Matador has a ton of, or Matterport, excuse me, has a ton of cool technology like that, where before you step foot in the home, you are getting a real good view of what it feels like, which is kind of decreasing some showings, but I think it's kind of to the benefit of everybody, where it's only the really serious buyers are stepping foot into the house. And giving the sellers some time, a little more time to be at home and not displace them for all of the showings of some of the buyers who are just curious based on photos and things like that. Now it's kind of the serious buyers are getting into the home, and we're seeing, contracts still going under.
Perfect. All right, thanks. Kate, I think you had a couple of questions as well, right?
I do have some questions for you.
Oh, wait, sorry. I do have one more question that I want to ask you. Sorry about that.
Okay.
With everything that you both have been talking about so far today, what do you think the impact is going to be on property values?
Well, overall, I think it's going to start to stabilize, particularly in the luxury market. When I did the stats, we had in April of 2019, median home price, this is all residential, this is attached and detached, was 404, 100,000. And in April of 2019, it was 410, so it was up slightly. In March of 2020, it was 434.5, and then in April of 2020 we took a slight decrease to 430, 430,000 as the median for detached and attached. I think though we're still seeing very much experience in the market, those cream puffs, those ones that show beautifully and are priced correctly and have state-of-the-art marketing with the Matterports and the 3D, all those tours, those ones are still going in a matter of days, and they're still going with multiple offers and for over list price. So it just really drives home the importance of having a realtor behind you who understands the market and knows how to price it correctly and knows exactly what needs to be done in order to get it market ready. Because if all those things are in place, those things that you can control, you will beat out your competitors and it will go quickly.
Good to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So my question for you, and this kind of touches base on what we were talking about last week, I would like you to talk more about the after effects of forbearance, because I know that word has just been thrown around in the loan side, and what are some real life examples that you have or that you've heard of people who have applied for it, and what has happened with that?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that. Because we're now about 6 or 7 weeks after the passing of the CARES Act by Congress. And when Congress passed the CARES Act, I think there was a big rush to get a whole bunch of immediate relief into the economy, into the United States, and provide some help for people that were experiencing job loss and that sort of thing. So when legislation is passed really, really quickly, we don't get the benefit of the ongoing vetting process that normally happens. And sometimes we don't find out until after a law has been passed that, oh my gosh, there's some trickle down effects or there's some other impacts that we didn't really realize was there. And what Congress has been discovering since they passed the CARES Act is the provision that allowed for forbearance. And the way that they passed the CARES Act, the forbearance provision did not have a means test that goes with it. And what I mean by that is it didn't have any kind of pre-qualification. In order to be able to utilize a forbearance as a way of postponing making your payment, if you were adversely impacted by the COVID-19 closures, then that's what the intention of Congress, I believe, was to give relief to the people that had lost their jobs. But rather, it made forbearance available to everyone, whether they needed it or not. So the impact of this is that we're finding that there are people who applied for and actually took a forbearance that maybe didn't need it and didn't realize that it came with ramifications. And the ramifications for forbearance is the piece that I don't think a lot of people realized were going to come as a result. And the previous guidance that we had from FHFA, which is the agency of the federal government that has taken over the receivership of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac many, many years ago, but they're the agency of the government that controls the bulk of the conventional loan market. And the guidance that they had given previously on the impact of a forbearance said that when a lender underwrites a loan, we have to take a look and see if that person meets certain minimum credit standards. And one of those credit standards happens to address forbearance. And the rule says that after your forbearance is complete, then we have another 12-month waiting period before you can be eligible for traditional financing again. So if someone applied for a forbearance, let's say last month, and their first payment that would have theoretically been into the forbearance agreement would have been the June payment. And let's say this particular borrower applied for a 3-month forbearance. So the forbearance payments would have been the payments due on June 1, July 1, and August 1. So September 1 of 2020 would be when the first traditional payment would have been due. So as long as they make that September 1, 2020 payment on time and all the other 11 payments after that, then they'll be eligible for traditional financing again in September of 2021. Now this is regardless of whether or not they actually took advantage of the forbearance and did indeed make those 3 payments past the due date. Even though they're not being reported to the credit bureau as late payments, they are indicated as paying under a forbearance agreement. The other thing that's been widely misunderstood is that a forbearance agreement says you don't have to make your payments at all. Mm-hmm. Instead, it takes the payment that was due in our example on June 1st, and it says that the June 1st payment can now be paid at a later date, but it still has to be paid.
Wow.
Did that help explain a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Have you come across anyone who has gone through the forbearance process?
Fortunately, it wasn't one of my personal clients, but one of my colleagues. We did indeed have a situation just last week, and it was a heartbreaking situation. It was somebody who had applied for a forbearance that didn't actually need it. This particular applicant had gotten a $500,000 home under contract. On the $500,000 purchase price, they were making a 20% down payment, which was $100,000, and so they were only financing $400,000. This particular applicant had $1.2 million in the bank, perfect job history, perfect credit, over 800 credit score, ended up getting declined for their loan because the indication on the credit report showed that they were making their mortgage payments under a forbearance agreement. And I think what happened was that applicant applied for the forbearance, not really needing it, but thinking it was a way to have the ability to postpone the payments without having a ramification that they didn't realize was actually there. So it was sad. That person ended up losing out on the ability to buy that home that they really wanted.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh,
That's really hard. So why then is it benefited, or why is it marketed as beneficial? Why have you just been hearing it thrown out? So why is that?
Yeah, so it really was designed to give a foreclosure relief or a temporary relief to someone who would otherwise be facing foreclosure, okay? If you've gone through every other resource trying to make your mortgage payments, if you've gone through all of your savings, if you've tried everything else, you've liquidated what you could liquidate, you took withdrawals out of your retirement account, you did everything else you could to avoid making a late payment, and you don't have any other resources left, then that's what this was really designed for. Let's go ahead and hold off foreclosure, get you back on your feet using a forbearance agreement. Now, there will be some ramifications as a result, but fortunately, if it's done properly, then you won't lose your home to foreclosure. And that's what we're really trying to prevent with a forbearance agreement.
right. So it's kind of like a last ditch effort before foreclosure.
Yeah.
So Christine, what's our biggest takeaway from this then?
Yeah. The biggest takeaway is if you can afford to make your payments, make your payments. If you can take a withdrawal from something else, a savings account, a retirement account, then you're going to preserve your ability to do other financing later. Maybe it's taking advantage of a refinance opportunity. Maybe it's purchasing a second home or an investment home or something like that. Let's preserve your ability to do those other types of financing by not taking the forbearance if you don't need it. But if you need it, let's make sure that you don't go into foreclosure, and let's utilize it for those times when we really need it. I hope that's been helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Really was. Yes, thank you so much. These are super, super helpful for us as consumers and as realtors, and it's just nice to chat with you and get some expert opinions and views on all of this. So thank you so much, both of you, and we will see you for the next one.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thanks.